Live, Eye on the Desert from CBS Local 2.
Rags to Riches is the story of a family who faces the unimaginable. They leave Hungary in 1944 as the Russians move into the German-occupied country, and their situation grows even more complicated in the years that follow. It's a story of the trials and tribulations of a family that faces and the woman who keeps them all together. Joining us now is Susan Van Loon, author of the book. Thanks for being here. Tell us a little about the novel. Where did you find the inspiration to write this book?
Well, I found it through my mother, obviously, because she is the one who inspired me. And because in 1944, she and my dad were married, and the reason it's called Riches to Rags is because my mother and father were wealthy, from a wealthy family before they were married. And then, of course, in 1945, you know, the war, Second World War broke out. My mother is pregnant, and they have to leave the country, and they go to Austria, and my brother is born under horrific conditions in Austria, and then a few months later, they returned back to Hungary, and which was a mistake, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But they go back, and 15 months later, I'm born, and for 11 years, we live under severe poverty.
Wow. Severe
poverty. And my mother supports us all because my father was a hunted man, because he wrote against communism before the war. He was in the newspaper business, and so he was hunted, so my mother had to support us, all four. And in 1956, when the revolution broke out in Hungary, we just could not go on any further. I mean, we just knew that starvation was not the answer, and my parents just decided that we will escape. And in 1956, in December 10th, my brother was 11, I was 10, and the four of us escaped the country and went to Austria, and then went to Canada. Canada took us in, and we started a new life.
Wow. How long did it take? How long did you spend researching this book? I mean, you must have had...
About 2 years.
Wow. And how did you research it?
Well, we started out, my mom was telling stories before I was born, and she just kept writing things down in Hungarian, in her handwriting, about this and this incident and this incident. I would read it and I go, that's not important. But what I thought was important, I would just sit down at the computer and start writing it. And it just kind of kept evolving, and I said, oh, that's interesting. And then her brother, who is really like, gives quite a light to this book, he's an interesting character, and then she would tell me stories about him, and I'd say, oh, that's interesting. So we just kind of kept working on all these stories, and it just turned into a book.
Wow. And
it was amazing how the whole thing just kind of evolved into a book, and then we're like, okay. And then I found this wonderful editor, Mike Yorkie, and he said, no, you need to publish this. This needs to be out to the public. Right. So it just kind of turned into a book then.
Okay,
yeah.
Wow, great. Well, we'll have information on the full screen about where you can find the book. Thank you so much for joining us here, Susan Van Loon, and thank you for spending time with us.